Welcome to Speed Talk Live, which isn't really live, but a poorly produced podcast where we talk about NASCAR and all things racing. And occasionally we have a special guest or two, when we can get them to show up. Sit down, strap in, pull those belts tight. Speed Talk Live is on the air.
Pace car is in. Green flag, green flag, green flag.
Welcome, everybody. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're back with Speed Talk Live, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. We got Olympics, we got horses, we've got something that happened at Richmond. I don't know, maybe you heard about it, maybe you didn't. Hey, the penalties came out. We'll talk about that. I'm Greg Engel, editor-in-chief, cupscene.com, and with me, as always, from merry old England this week, although he's not going to remain there, and we've got some exciting news we're going to talk about later in the program. But for now, he's over in England. Our associate editor, Owen Johnson. Hello, my friend.
Hey, Greg. Great to join you. Great to be back.
It is great to be back. It was fun for those 2 weeks. Now, I got my glass of scotch, by the way. I want everybody to know that's what I'm drinking. But let's talk about the Olympics because those only happen every 4 years. I'm going to tell you this. I'm unabashedly a huge fan of the Olympics, the Summer Olympics, the Winter Olympics. And I thought this year was spectacular. I think Paris did a fantastic job. There was no big security incidents. The water in the Seine may have had some poop in it. I don't know, but it was great. The opening ceremony, I thought start to finish was fantastic. Celine Dion, let me tell you, I got emotional at that. There was a lot of dust in this room when I saw that because of everything she's been through. It was fantastic to see. I know there's some Bible thumpers that got a little pissed off, but you know what? I thought it was fantastic, the opening ceremony. I love the games themselves. I love watching them, seeing all the competition. Simone Biles was amazing, incredible. There was also some other great performances, but the whole thing itself was fantastic. I watched the closing ceremonies. I watched the opening ceremonies live. I didn't watch the wrap up. I watched the closing ceremonies live as well. And, you know, Tom Cruise coming from the ceiling. He's my age. So anytime somebody can do some crazy crap like that was just wonderful. I'm a huge fan of all things LA. I can't wait to be out there. The company I worked for during the week had some sponsorship and actually had a couple participants. So they may be involved in the LA 2028 games. And maybe, who knows, me might get involved in some of that. So I'm looking forward to that. I loved it. My favorite, by the way, because we all imagine, right, just like driving a race car, we all imagine that we could do an Olympic sport. And I think at my age, maybe I could be like the dressage, they call it, the horses. I think I could be that guy on the horseback who wears the funny little helmets because the horse does all the work, right? And you just kind of sit there and kind of pull the reins and go. I think I could do that, but I know you got a different take because you're big into swimming. You swim collegiately, and you're also a coach. So how did you like the Olympic Games this year, especially the swimming part?
Well, just to talk about the Olympics as a whole, I completely agree with you. I really like how Paris put on the show, not only having these amazing venues, but also talking about making it a little bit more sustainable going forward without creating some new venues, being able to repurpose existing facilities, making it a little bit less problematic for the French taxpayer, for the French residents. I think that's a great thing, and I hope LA is able to do that. I know they're not creating any new venues for LA, which I think is going to be fantastic for LA residents to be able to get behind the Olympics without having to see anything, kind of any disruption like we saw Rio or Beijing, for instance. But I was really excited to watch the swimming these past couple of weeks. Some really great swims. Leon Marchand, for instance, really was a breakout star, I think. He's coached by Michael Phelps's old coach, Bob Bowman. Trains in the US, but he swims for France. And the French, not the most necessarily spirited people always with these sporting events, but they got right behind Leon Marchand, which was really great to see. But also some really good American swimmers. Katie Ledecky in the distance events. Didn't quite win the 400, ended up with a bronze medal there, but absolutely dominated the 800, dominated the 1500, and so many Olympics in. That's just so incredible to see. Really good swims throughout. I was most impressed by Ledecky, but Leon Marchand was my breakout star. One other interesting thing just to highlight out of interest, the pool was slow this year. We got very few world records, really shallow, lots of camera equipment at the bottom, which is interesting. You can kind of create a slow pool. You feel it if you swim yourself, but it is a weird thing to say, a slow pool. but definitely a slower pool this year at the Olympics.
I knew you would have that kind of insight, a slow pool. I would never think of that, but I thought of you when I was watching the swimming events because I know you're really into that. So let me ask you this: LA 2028. You're not that old. Could you get in a position to maybe, I kid about being on horses. I obviously never be on a horse, but there's a possibility. Could you actually work your way into maybe being competitive enough to be on a team, or maybe being an advisor or an assistant coach or something in LA 2028, or am I just kind of grasping at straws?
I wish. I think swimming, one of the things I like about swimming is it's all about how much time you put in and how it's complete effort, I think. And the Olympians are training every hour of every day. I'm not. I'm in law school. I'm doing bunch of other things doing this. I'm not quite putting in the number of hours, but I have a huge amount of respect for the people who do. And it's a massive different level of swimming to see some of our national competitions, seeing some of the Olympians there, a very different level of competition. I'll say that.
It would be cool. It'd be cool to I know that guy and watching Owen Johnson swim, but okay, I get it. You're right. And I think your passion is law, and that's where you're. But you're right. These guys have to train 24/7. I mean, it's almost like racers. They have to be training. So anyway, the Olympics was great. I'm looking forward to the Winter Olympics. I'm looking forward to LA in 2028. Who knows what'll happen between now and then? Maybe I'll be involved in it in a communications role or something like that. But I'm looking forward to it. A lot of stuff happened in the 2-week break. Daniel Suarez got married. Tyler Reddick got married. Suarez won in Brazil, a NASCAR Brazil race, which was fun to watch. I did kind of watch some of it online, and I got a chance to be in on a press conference with him and talk to him about it. It was just great to see. He was so happy, and I'm really, really happy for him because he's a great guy. So Danny Suarez got married, our newest American citizen. Kyle Larson won the Knoxville Nationals coming into Richmond, which was, I mean, that's his third consecutive win. I mean, the guy's a monster, man. It was awesome to see that, and he's just a monster on the track. But speaking of Richmond, the whole race, 398 laps, or however many. There was 2 laps to the end. It looked like it was going to be Austin Dillon, and then of course we had the dust up. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. crashed with Ryan Preece right in front of him, and then we set up for an overtime finish, and it got really nasty. He first knocked Logano out of the way, and then he knocked Denny Hamlin out of the way while the spotter's yelling on the radio, wreck him, wreck him. Now I get it. He was, I believe, like 32nd in the points. He was way down in the points. There's no way he was going to make it on points. But with NASCAR's playoff system, you win and you're in. So that's what he thought he did. I wasn't a big fan of it. The way it came down. I think if he had not taken out Denny Hamlin, if Denny Hamlin had been back a little bit and Dillon would have won by just knocking Logano out of the way, I don't think it would have been as controversial as it was. But I think when you've got the spotter yelling on the radio to wreck him, and he goes down and wrecks Hamlin, then that's drawing the line. We didn't really know where the line is. Speaking of the line, we didn't know. It was kind of invisible, but we knew that it could be crossed, and it turns out Austin did cross that line. And we're talking to you a couple hours after the penalties came out. Basically, he gets to keep the win, but it's not going to count towards the playoffs. And he also was docked 25 driver, and the team was docked 25 owner points. I like the penalties. Okay. I think he deserved the win because he was the best car all day. And the last 2 laps when they set up the overtime finish, the way it worked out, it was okay. But I think he deserved that win. So I was glad he got it. The team obviously figured out the prime and option tires, and got him in a good position. He was strong all week, and he led qualifying. He started in the top 10. So I'm glad he was able to keep the win. And I'm glad that it didn't make the playoffs, because I think it could incentivize other drivers who are in the same position to maybe think twice about trying to wreck somebody out before that, just to make the playoffs, and maybe they'll hold back a little bit in the future and understand that NASCAR may not necessarily put them in the playoffs. So I thought it was a good balance. And then obviously Joey Logano coming on pit road and displaying his anger. He actually lit up his tires, did a smoky burnout on pit road, which is a lot of people on pit road after the race, including Austin Dillon's wife and child. There's also other people out there. I think he put those folks in danger, and obviously, NASCAR officials swarmed on him like a flock of geese, and just told him to stop. And I think the punishment for that was appropriate, although $25,000 to a NASCAR driver is pretty much like grocery money. But I think it sent a signal that that NASCAR is not going to tolerate that kind of stuff. I think it was appropriate, and I think the way it's worked out for Dillon. Some people were calling for the guy's head on a stake, man, and others were just like, "That's racing." I think this finds a perfect balance. But I know you watched, Owen. What did you think of all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think firstly it was $50,000 for Logano, just to wrap that up. So maybe 2 weeks grocery money, but still, it's still a fine rather than anything beyond that. Yeah, I definitely think regarding Dillon, at least the penalty was definitely appropriate. I think it really struck an important balance of saying, we have this win in your in system, but you can't win at all costs. You can't just wreck drivers out of the way. If you're fifth in line at Talladega, you can't just create a massive wreck and get the win however you want. There has to be some line in the sand in the win in your end system we've created, especially now that in the past, I think it's this year or the last year, we got rid of the 30th in points rule. Previously, you had to be within the top 30 in points. So Austin Dillon coming in 32nd wouldn't have been able to get in the playoffs with this move. He is now, with the points issue, he's now back 31st with the 25 points docked. So he's still outside the top 30 in points. But previously, he wouldn't have been able to get in. Now, the big thing I thought was really interesting, talking about the reaction on social media, is the inevitable references to Dale Earnhardt and any sort of old style of racing in NASCAR. And I think that, that's certainly true. Jimmy Johnson made that reference, and we romanticize it, but I think it's really stretched too far. Fred Smith, motorsports editor over at Road and Track, made a really good point that most of Earnhardt's races and wins where he was clean are forgotten. We remember a couple of very specific instances, most of which he got very negative reaction to, where he wrecked a few drivers to win. Think Labonte at Bristol, for instance, I think twice. Spinning Waltrip at Richmond, he was even it was an aggressive bump and run where he was penalized for that instance in the first place. So a couple of specific instances were not what NASCAR was like back in those days, and I don't think we should romanticize a version of NASCAR that just didn't exist at all. There has to be a line in the sand. This is, I think, the correct line. There should be some degree of racing, but this is allowing someone to wreck for the win and just to exploit the playoff system is not just racing. So yeah, I completely agree with the penalty.
I agree with that. And you just broke the news on X, on Twitter. Richard Childress is going to appeal it. I don't know why. I think they should just keep their mouth shut and move on. It's so egregious in my mind. And I'm glad you talked. You're right, 50,000. I just had to change my story on Forbes while you were talking because I forgot. For some reason I had 25,000 stuck in my head. 50,000 is 2 weeks grocery money. But you're correct. But you're right. You romanticize this stuff, and we think about it. But I was around when Earnhardt Sr. was doing his thing, and while he had legions of fans, he also had legions of haters that weren't very happy with him. And you talk about that period in NASCAR. That was the period where people could lead by 2 laps over the field, or Jeff Burton could lead every lap at New Hampshire and wake me when it's over. So there was some great things about that time period, but those tend to get the bad things tend to get glossed over with time. And I agree with you. Earnhardt did some things that were great, but he also did some things that drew the ire of a lot of fans that weren't fans of his. So I think this was a good balance. I think that NASCAR really did debate it. Normally penalties come out on Tuesday. But they obviously spent some time on debating it. And to their credit, Elton Sawyer met with us and the media today. I've got that video up on our YouTube channel, and I'll link it in the comments. He met with us and basically said the same things, that the line, here's the line that can't be crossed. So I remember when the Waltrip deal happened. That was, I was there when that happened, and we were running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And I think they did the right thing then. I think they're doing the right thing now, and kudos to them. And I'm not trying to be a NASCAR cheerleader, but I think they did get it right in this instance, and I'm glad it took a little time, a little time to work it out. So, but it also sends another message, right, Owen?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that line, and I think Elton Sawyer really pointed out that it's a line not just for NASCAR drivers, but it's a line for every racing series, every oval racing series. We hear a lot about some of the drivers in NASCAR at every level complaining about some of the driving standards in oval racing right now, where drivers are seeing the Cup drivers do this every Sunday. Maybe not this, but some form of very aggressive driving every Sunday, and think that that's just an acceptable way to race. Well, I think what you're seeing is in the Wheel and Modified series or in the Cars Tour, this kind of racing is trickling down, and this series are doing a really good job, I think, of penalizing drivers, but you're not seeing in NASCAR. Well, NASCAR's now put this line in the sand to say, you cannot just go out and wreck some driver for a win, for a playoff berth, for whatever that is in that other series. There has to be some line, and I think it's really important that lower level racing and these developing drivers who will one day be NASCAR stars see that and don't try to drive like that because they think that's what their heroes are doing on Sunday.
And here's the thing. The final 4 laps, 2 laps, 4 laps, the last 20 minutes of that race really overshadowed something that hasn't been talked about as much, and that's the performance of these option versus prime tires. Now, we used these at the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, and I thought they were a dud. But they came back and they used them. Daniel Suarez had an amazing going through the field when he put them on early and got the attention of many. I mean, he passed Christopher Bell, who was leading at the time. He passed Christopher Bell like Bell was sitting at a highway rest stop, and got better track position and was definitely in contention. And it moved him up. And when I saw that people were putting the options on late in the race, I thought that was all great, and it overshadowed really not only the controversy that happened, but the fact that RCR had their stuff together, right? And Dylan on those prime tires was unbeatable because he was strong all weekend. He led, when it counted in the race. So it really overshadowed that, and that's a shame. But it also goes back to my point. This season, 2024, with the controversial finishes or the close finishes like we had at Atlanta, the other finishes we had like at Worldwide Technology Race, some of the finishes we've had, some of the on-track action we've had this year has been some of the best on record, and I'm fired up for the rest of the year and to see how the season plays out. I don't know if you feel that way, Owen.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I can't remember any season where not only have we broken the record for the closest finish, but we've also had this Richmond deal. We've had multiple close finishes. We had the Atlanta finish even earlier in the season that you don't even think about. And we still haven't even gotten to the end of the regular season. There's still so much to go this season. I think the next gen car has done a really good job overall this season, put on some really good shows. For as much as we complain sometimes about the package, overall, I think we're in a really good place in NASCAR right now.
So looking ahead, as we look ahead, because we're getting ready to go into the playoffs, a couple things I want to talk about. First off is Michigan. I love Michigan. It's a 2-mile track. It is super badass fast. And the speeds there are incredible. It's going to be great to see. Richmond was fun, but it's a shorter track, but we're going to unleash the beast, so to speak, at Michigan this week. Fords have been doing well there. I think that story is going to continue. I'm looking for Ryan Blaney to come out and have a good run and score the win for Ford. But I know you disagree a little bit, not on the Ford part, but the other part.
Well, I definitely agree with you about Ford, but I'm looking at a driver who won last year, and that's Chris Buescher. He last year won at Richmond, then he went and won at Michigan, and then Daytona again, which was a sweep of the three, not in a row, but three oval tracks in a row. There are a couple of road courses that separated that last year. But what I think is really interesting is Buescher's position in the playoffs. What's happened with Austin Dillon taking away his win, that means there's now 4 spots again available on points coming into Michigan. So the drivers that sit in that bubble right now, Martin Truex, pretty good position, 78 points above, but Ty Gibbs is only 18 points. Bubba Wallace is only 3 points to the good. And Chris Buescher, who's in the cut line, and Ross Chastain, who's below it on a tiebreaker, they're tied right now, 0 points separating them. Chase Briscoe behind 99, so he's kind of out of range. But it's going to be a big battle for that final cutoff spot, knowing with the next 3 races to go that some driver could, assuming they don't get their win taken away, or their playoff eligibility taken away again, some driver could take that spot. Any new winner could take that spot and make even fewer spots available for a win. But we know for points, but we know there will be 1 point spot at least. So there's plenty of motivation for all these drivers, Chris Buescher especially, to go race for points, but also to get that win that takes all the pressure off.
Okay, there you have that. And I know you're going to break it down this week. You'll have a preview on cupscene.com. Despite, I know you're busy, but you always take the time to break it down. So we'll have that coming out later this week. But I want to talk about some more exciting news, because if you listen to this, first off, thank you. I appreciate it. But the following week, we're going to Daytona. So why is that special? Because for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, in the history of human existence, Owen and I are going to be at the same track together. Drum roll, please. So we are going to be at Daytona. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I thought you were saying you were going to Darlington. Is that true? Or is it just Daytona?
We should be doing Darlington as well, yes.
All right, there you go. You got a chance over those 2 races, Daytona and Darlington, to come see us and say hi. We're going to be at the Tweet Ups. By the way, Owen, I need you to go to the Tweet Ups. We'll be at the Tweet Ups for both of those races. We'll have swag to hang out. Come say hi to us. I'm thinking we're probably going to do one or both of the next shows after Michigan at the track. Kind of a reactionary piece, stealing the light from Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi, because we can do that, and we'll sit there late at night and do a reaction kind of show after Daytona. But I'm looking forward to that. I've worked races, you've worked races, but we've never worked one together. It's going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too as well, Owen.
Definitely. We're looking forward to seeing those tracks as well, getting to cover races there.
Yeah, if seeing Daytona is going to be a highlight, and we're looking forward to it. But for now, do continue your law education, my young friend, and you continue to click and like and subscribe and do all the junk you do. Visit cupscene.com. Look at Owen's preview that's coming out this week. If you're going to Daytona, if you're going to Darlington, hit me up on Twitter or hit Owen up on Twitter. Let us know. Elon Musk is like cussing me out right now on X, but hit us up. Let us know. Come to the Tweet Ups. Meet us. We'll have stuff to hand out. We would love to meet you. Let's get through Michigan first this week. Chris Buescher, according to Owen Johnson, and Greg Engel has got Ryan Blaney, and who knows, maybe Austin Dillon will win it and shut us all up. But we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to Speed Talk Live. For questions or just to tell us how bad our production is or to leave other feedback, leave us a comment below. For all the latest NASCAR news, visit www.cupscene.com. Until next time, peace out and let's go racing.
All right, there's the checkered flag. Great job, driver.